The Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to John.
Glory to you, O Lord.
At that time, many of the disciples of Jesus said, "This is a hard saying. Who can listen to it?" But Jesus, knowing in himself that his disciples were grumbling about this, said to them, "Do you take offense at this? Then what if you were to see the Son of Man ascending to where he was before? It is the Spirit who gives life. The flesh is no help at all. The words that I have spoken to you are spirit and life. But there are some of you who do not believe." For Jesus knew from the beginning who those were who did not believe and who it was who would betray him. And he said, "This is why I told you that no one can come to me unless it is granted him by the Father." After this, many of his disciples turned back and no longer walked with him. So Jesus said to the 12, "Do you want to go away as well?" Simon Peter answered him, "Lord, to whom shall we go? You have the words of eternal life. And we have believed and have come to know that you are the Holy One of God." The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
It is told in the life story of great Greek philosopher Aristotle. Some of his friends asked him, "Master, define yourself. Explain yourself to us." Then his answer, which was very profound and insightful, he said, "If you want to know myself, I am the result or the product of all the decisions I made and the choices I made in my life." It is so true about yourself and myself, my dear friends. If we stand before the Lord and before others, I am only, in many ways than not, a result of all the decisions, the choices I have made. If you have a problem in your life, or if you have reason to be happy about your life, it's all because of the choices you made and the decisions you had. Today, my dear friends, the liturgy of the word, the first reading taken from the book of Joshua in the Old Testament, the second reading from the letter of St. Paul to the Ephesians in the New Testament, as well as the gospel, gives us profound thoughts about how our decisions have to be made, or what decisions or choices we make will do to us in the long run. If you go to the context of the first reading, it was the time of Joshua, who had taken over the leadership of the people of Israel from Moses. And it was a difficult time for him because handling or leading an entire population of people was not easy. The people were complaining. They were fighting with each other. They were complaining about how good it was to be slaves in Egypt. And he had all kinds of challenges. And then finally, when he came close to the land of liberation, he called everybody and he said, "Now, you got to make your decision." As we read in the first reading, Joshua says, either you follow God of Israel, or you chose to follow other gods. The choice is yours, and the decision has to be yours. If you want this way, come with me, and we will move on to our own newness of life. So, the choice was given, and the decision was made. How? Because people made the decision or made the choice to go with Joshua and trust in the God of Israel because of their ability to look back into their past. So, the first point here is that in order to make good decisions, you always have to look back into your own past. When you read about making good decisions in life, my dear friends, there is this great philosopher from the US, Mark Twain, who writes beautifully about making decisions or making wise decisions. He said, good decisions come through experience. Good decisions come through experience. But experience comes through bad decisions. Because when you have your own story of life, my dear friends, all of us have in some way or the other made bad decisions in life. As Mark Twain says, if our bad decisions do not give us experience, and that experience should inspire us or lead us to make good decisions or right choices in life. Sometimes for all of us, the mistake is that we do not learn from our bad decisions. Whether it is about an individual or family or even a nation, my dear friends, if we do not learn from our bad decisions, that means we have not experienced. When you don't have experience, you don't make good decisions. As we know, we are a country of people who are now in the forefront or at the threshold of making a decision about our future leaders. It is important that we look back and ask ourselves, what were we doing? Where was our thinking? What was going on for us, all of us, majority of us, whether it is leaders of the church, leaders of the temples, or even people so-called elite and educated? What were we doing for the last so many years? Where was our experience? If our experience of the result of our bad decisions do not give us an experience which inspires us to make good decisions, as Mark Twain says, my dear friends, we are not capable of making any future progress as a people. So Joshua gave them the time or the choice or the freedom. Make your decision. Either you come or you leave. But if you come with the creator of life, the God of Israel, you have been protected all these years. In other words, what he said is, have God in your life. My dear friends, it is so important for you and for me. If we have made mistakes in life, whether it is about your marriage, your career, or whatever, we never perhaps had the mind of God, the level that helps us to see the entire experience of our lives in our decisions. So that is why, my dear friends, today the second reading taken from the letter of St. Paul to the Ephesians, which was written about a century after the time of Jesus, way away from the time of Joshua. He talks about marriage, because marriage is one of the most important decisions that we make as adults. That is why there is a saying in English language, marriage can either make you or it can break you. Sometimes it's so disappointing when in these times, my dear friends, people make the choice for their future partner or future husband or wife with little or no thought going into it. It so happens, my dear friends, as a priest, in these days when people come and sit for their first encounter with a priest about getting married, young people, so you ask them, how long do you know each other? About 3 months, Father? Where do you live? I live in US. Where is your girlfriend? She lives in Australia. How long have you known each other? About 3 months. How did you meet? We met on Instagram, Facebook. So here you have a very sad experience as priests, because we can't tell them, why don't you take more time? Spend some years, get to know each other, because they can turn back and ask us, what do you know about marriage? Father, you've never been married, so who are you to tell us? So, in a way, we are against the wall because we don't want to say anything. But then, who has to give them this instruction? It's the parents. Whoever, if they are, tell them, take time to make your decision for your future. Take time, reflect about it, pray about it, spend time with each other, learn about marriage, and learn whatever you can learn from the sciences like psychology and any other behavioral sciences about marriage, complexities of marriage. At least look around and see what is going on with your own brother, your sister, your neighbor, your friend. Marriage is an important decision. So that is why the second reading, St. Paul was writing this letter not about preparing people for marriage, because if you ever read Buddhist teachings on marriage, Buddha never gave too many instructions about marriage. Compared to what is written in the Bible and in the Buddhist teachings, is very little. But Buddha insists on something very strongly, because perhaps he was a married man himself. He says, the most important decision in marriage is choosing the right person. If you don't choose the right person, in other words, he says, forget about it. So take time to make your decision. That's Buddha's teaching. But here, what Paul is saying was, because not about making a choice about marriage, but he was learning, because he was in prison at that time, that in Ephesus the marriages were having all kinds of problems. People were into adultery, all kinds of fights, drinking, fornication, you name it. The entire community of Ephesus had all these problems. So he was reflecting on how to give instructions about people who have made the choice for marriage. So he brings in the archetype of God and the church, Christ and the church. And that is why here in the reading today, Paul is in some ways telling his own people, especially he says, wives, submit to your own husbands as to the Lord. So sometimes it so happens, some of our chauvinistic men, they come to church and want their wives to listen to this, read or listen what Jesus has said, or listen what Paul is saying. Submit to me because I am your man. You got to be my slave. In other words, they want only what is written on the surface to be conveyed to their women. What Paul says is that marriages are anyway important decisions, but it is not easy. So he brings in the archetype of the relationship of Christ with the church, and he says, make your marriage be like the relationship that Christ had with his people, with his church. Because, my dear friends, if there is a husband who is completely giving his life for his wife, you don't have to tell the wife to obey the man or to listen to the man. It happens naturally. But what is important is that you made the choice to love your marriage, you love your spouse as Christ has loved his church. Sometimes, my dear friends, as Albert Einstein has said very correctly, he says, you can never find solutions to problems at the level they were created. Marriage is a union between a man and a woman, two individuals, two entities of cultures. But then What Paul brings out is another level. Look at your marriage from the point of view of the relationship that God has with his people. Christ gave his whole life for the church. Husbands, give your life to your wife. Wives, obey your husbands. So therefore, my dear friends, again, it is a choice. It is a decision. Do I look at marriage or live my life, live my marriage as everyone else is living? Or do I have a higher realm of living my life, giving myself a different spirit, an inner soul to our relationship? So therefore, my dear friends, when we come to the gospel passage as well, Jesus himself had this problem. Some of his disciples were not ready to go along with all what he said. But he tells them, do you want to leave? You are free to leave. Do you want to stay? You are free to stay. But make your choice and make your decision to live your life as a disciple, as I have lived. Live your life yourself. My dear friends, as it is always said, our decisions will determine or will always determine our destiny. How we look at life, how we make choices, the decisions we make in life will make us become who we are. So, if you take your own life, your family life, your life in the nation or in the country, my dear friends, if I have my own center in the Creator or the one who has given us life, that is where we will all be blessed in the journey of life. Decisions will always make us become who we are. We all have, as I said earlier, we all have made mistakes in our life, but let our bad decisions give us experience that will lead us to good decisions in the time that is ahead of us. As it is, my dear friends, the choice is ours. Do I live my life in God, or do I live my life the way I want? The decision is ours, and the consequences are also ours then.